Good morning, KCPS. I'm so glad that you're back to join me for another week of learning about reading. So today we are going to be reading a book called The Name Jar, and our focus is going to be a little different this week. Now we're going to be talking about point of view. Typically when you're reading and you hear that word point of view, you may think first person, second person, third person. But in this case, I want to introduce something new when I hear the word point of view that I want you to be thinking about when you're reading. And that's analyzing perspective. And so when you're looking at characters and their point of view, you're thinking about the way the characters view people and events in a passage or a book. Sometimes I want you to think about their beliefs, what they believe, and sometimes that's going to be stated very clearly in the story, or sometimes it may come out in the words or phrases that the author chooses to use around the characters to show what they believe. Another part of point of view is their values. When someone values something, it usually means that they hold it close to their heart. They appreciate it. So sometimes our characters are going to show that they value something through their actions or things that they say. And then again, the author is choosing those words or phrases to help show us that. Another part of point of view I want you to think about is attitude. And now, when you think of attitude, you may think of someone having a bad attitude, but I want to change your frame of thinking about that. I want you to think about attitude in terms of how they feel about something, in terms of their point of view. So an attitude more is a way of thinking. Okay? The last piece of point of view I want you to think is experience. So sometimes a character may have an attitude about a particular event or person or a value or belief about something, but it changes or it's shaped based off of their experiences. Okay? So today when we're reading The Name Jar, our character's point of view is going to be pretty evident through some of her beliefs, her values, her attitude, and then some of the experiences, which will alter her point of view through the story. Let's get started reading and see what our main character's point of view is. So let's begin reading our story. The Name Jar by Yang Suk Choi. Through the school bus window, Eun-hae looked at the strange buildings and houses on the way to her new school. It was her first day, and she was both nervous and excited. She fingered the little block of wood in her pocket and remembered leaving her grandmother at the airport in Korea. Her grandmother had wiped away Eun-hae's tears and handed her an ink pad and a small red satin pouch. "Your name is inside," she said. "My name?" Eun-hae had wondered. Again, she took out the red pouch to look at the wooden block with her name carved in it. As she ran her fingers along the grooves and ridges of the Korean characters, she pictured her grandmother's smile. "Is that thing for show and tell?" a boy asked Eun-hae, surprising her. Eun-hae looked up as more kids leaned over. "No, it's mine," Eun-hae answered, quickly putting the pouch back in her pocket. "Are you new here? What's your name?" a girl asked. "Eun-hae," said Eun-hae. "Eun-hae?" the girl scrunched up her face. "Ooh, Eun-hae," some kids chanted. No, Eun-hae corrected. It's spelled U-N-H-E-I. It's pronounced Yoon-hae. "Oh, it's Yo-hae," said the boy. "Like you, hey. What about hey you?" Just then, the bus pulled up to the school and the doors opened. Eun-hae hurried off. "You-hae, bye-bye," the kids yelled as she left. Eun-hae felt herself blush. Eun-hae stood in the doorway of her new, noisy classroom. She was relieved that the kids on the bus had gone to the other room, but her face still felt red. "Aren't you going in?" asked a curly-haired boy with lots of dots on his face. "You're the new girl, right?" he asked cheerfully. Eun-hae nodded, and before she could walk away, the boy took her hand and pulled her through the door. "Here's the new girl," he announced so loudly that the teacher, Mr. Kokotas, almost dropped his glasses. Mr. Kokotas thanked him and greeted Eunhae. "Please welcome our newest student," he said to the class. "She and her family just arrived from Korea last week." Eunhae smiled broadly and tried not to show her nervousness. "What's your name?" someone shouted. Eunhae pictured the boy on the bus. I haven't found one yet," she told the class, "but I'll let you know next week." As Mr. Kokotos showed her around to her desk, she felt many round, curious eyes on her. "Why doesn't she have a name?" she heard someone whisper. "Maybe she robbed a bank in Korea and needs a new identity," a boy replied. On the bus home, nobody teased her, but Eunhae kept thinking about her name. "How was school, Eunhae?" her mother asked when she walked in. "Do you understand the teacher?" Eunhae simply nodded. She unpacked her school bag and sat the red pouch by a photograph of her grandmother. "I'm glad you are learning English well," her mother said. "You must study hard, behave nicely, and get good grades to show that you are a good Korean." "I will," replied Eunhae, "but I think I would like my own American name," she said quickly. Her mother looked at her with surprise. "Why? Eunhae is a beautiful name. Your grandmother and I went to a name master for it." "But it's so hard to pronounce," Eunhae complained. "I don't want to be different from all the American kids." "You are different, Eunhae," her mother said. "That's a good thing." Eunhae just wrinkled her nose. Later that day, Eunhae and her mother went grocery shopping in their new neighborhood. They passed Falafel, Tony's Pizza, and Dot's Deli. A big graffiti-painted garbage truck roared like a lion as it took off down the street. Nothing sounded or looked familiar until they got to Kim's Market. The sign was both in English and Korean. Her mother picked up cabbage to make kimchi, Korean-styled spicy pickled cabbage, and other vegetables and meat. She also found some seaweed, Eunhae's favorite for soup. It made Eunhae smile. "Just because we moved to America," her mother said, "doesn't mean we have to stop eating Korean food." At the checkout counter, a friendly man smiled at Eunhae. "Helping your mother with shopping?" he asked. Eunhae nodded. "I'm Mr. Kim," he said. "And what's your name?" "Eunhae," she answered. "Ah, what a beautiful name," he said. "Doesn't it mean grace?" Eunhae nodded again. "My mother and grandmother went to a name master for it," she told him. "A graceful name for a graceful girl," Mr. Kim said, as he put her groceries into bags. "Welcome to the neighborhood, Eunhae." That evening, Eunhae stood in front of the bathroom mirror. "Hi, my name is Amanda," she said cheerfully. Then she wrinkled her nose. "Hi, my name is Laura." Maybe not. Her smile turned down. Nothing sounded right. Nothing felt right. "I don't think American kids will like me," she worried as she began to brush her teeth. "Hi, my name is Shozi," she said to the mirror, with a mouthful of toothpaste. The next morning, when Eunhae arrived at school, she found a glass jar on her desk with some pieces of paper in it. Eunhae took one out and read it aloud. "Daisy." "That's my baby sister's nickname, but she said you could use it if you want," said Cindy, who sat next to her. Eunhae took out the rest of the paper. "Tamela," she read. "I got it from a storybook," said Nate. "She was smart and brave." Eunhae nodded and unfolded another piece. "Wednesday?" "Yeah, you came here on a Wednesday," said Ralph. "Thank you for your help." A smile spread over Eunhae's face. Ralph quickly said, "We'll put more names in. You can pick whatever you like, or pick them all, and you'll have the longest name in history." At 3 o'clock, the bell rang for the end of the school day. Unhei looked out the window and saw it was sprinkling. It's the same rain, she thought, but in a different place. She watched other kids leaving in groups. Hey, a familiar face called out. Unhei turned around to see the curly-haired boy again. I'm Joey, he said. And you? Don't you have any name? Unhei thought for a moment. Well, I can show you, she said. And she took out the small red pouch. She pressed the wooden block on the ink pad and then stamped it on a piece of paper. This is my name stamp, she said. My grandmother gave it to me. In Korea, I can use it as a signature when I open a bank account or write a letter. And whenever I miss my grandma, I use it to fill a piece of paper. Want to try? She offered the stamp to Joey, and he carefully inked the stamp and pressed it hard on the paper. The red characters gleamed against the whiteness. Wow, that's beautiful, Joey said. Can I keep the paper? Sure, Unhei said, and the two of them shared her umbrella as they walked to the school bus. Every day, the jar got fuller with more names, and Unhei read them all. She found a few names she liked. Miranda, Stella, Avery. They sounded interesting. I hope you choose the name I put in, Marco told her at snack time. I've put in 3 more, said Ralph. Madison, Park, and Lex. They're my favorite street names. Maybe you should close your eyes and draw a name, Rosie suggested. Ralph frowned. That's silly. What if she doesn't like the name she draws? Well, we didn't get to choose our names when we were born, did we? Rosie argued. Everyone thought about this. When Unhei got home from school that day, her little brother ran to give her a letter. It was from her grandma. She opened it quickly. It said, To my Unhei, I hope you are enjoying your new school and new friends. Be sure to help your mother and your little brother. Here the moon is up, but there the sun is up. No matter how far apart we are, and no matter how different America is from Korea, you'll always be my Unhei, your grandma forever. Unhei took out her wooden stamp and filled a paper with it. She thought for a long time in front of the bathroom mirror. On Saturday, Unhei walked to Mr. Kim's store. Mr. Kim was helping a customer, but he looked up and greeted her. Hi, Unhei. Hello, Mr. Kim, Unhei replied. She felt as if she was back in her old neighborhood in Korea. Hey, said the customer, turning around. It was Joey. Your name is Unhei? He asked her with his eyes open wide. Unhei looked quickly at Mr. Kim, then turned to Joey. She nodded slowly. Yes, it's pronounced Unhei, and it means grace, Mr. Kim added. Unhei, Joey said slowly, and this time perfectly. It made Unhei smile. I'll have it ready for you tomorrow, said Mr. Kim to Joey. Thank you, Mr. Kim. See you Monday, Unhei, Joey said to her. He left before she could ask him why he was at the store. On Monday, Unhei came to class early to look at the names one last time, but the jar wasn't on her desk. Instead, there was just a single piece of paper with a name on it. Unhei slipped it in her pocket. Where's the name jar? Ralph asked as soon as he saw it was gone. I don't know, Unhei said. It was on Mr. Kokoto's desk or on my other on any other desk, and it wasn't on the counters or any of the shelves. As other kids arrived, they helped look. Soon, Mr. Kokotos came in and Ralph shouted at him. The name jar is gone. The names with all the names in it. Gone, Mr. Kokotos replied. With a look of concern, he asked Unhei, did you get a chance to read all of the names? Unhei nodded. She took a breath. I'm ready to introduce myself, she said. Unhei wrote her name in both English and Korean on the chalkboard. I liked the beautiful names and funny names you thought of for me, she told the class. But I realized I like my name, So I chose it again. Korean names mean something. Eunhae means grace. Grace, Grace, Inhae, shouted Ralph. Everyone tried to say it. Yinghae, Unye, Unha. Eunhae said her name again slowly and clearly. Soon the kids began to say it better, even Mr. Kokotos. They applauded Eunhae's choice. I was named after a flower, Rosie whispered to Eunhae. Lots of American names have meanings too, Mr. Kokotos said. When the class was dismissed, Eunhae finally heard her new friend say her name and say goodbye. Bye, Eunhae, see you tomorrow. Eunhae said goodbye and looked around for Joey, but he was already gone. Eunhae, come downstairs, Mother called up. Your friend is here. Eunhae rushed downstairs to see who she meant. There stood Joey, and in his arms was the name jar. Where did you find it? Eunhae said breathlessly. Joey looked embarrassed. Well, I took it. But only because I wanted you to keep your own name, and you did. He reached in and pulled out the names. Do you want to keep them? He asked. Thank you. I'll keep them as a souvenir, Eunhae said happily. Then she pulled out the paper from her pocket. Do you want this back? Joey grinned. You can keep it. I'll return the name jar to the class. Maybe you could put some Korean nicknames in it for us. Names with good meanings. I could do that, agreed Eunhae. I've already got a Korean nickname, Joey said. Mr. Kim helped me choose it. Carefully, he pulled a small silver pouch from his pocket. Then he took out a small dark wooden stamp with beautiful Korean characters carved sharply into it. He pressed it onto the ink pad and then on a piece of paper next to her name. Chinku, read Eunhae. That means friend. And Chinku smiled back. The end. Wow. I'm so glad that our main character decided to keep her name. Do you know the story behind your name or how it was chosen? That may be something you want to ask someone in your family later because there may be a story as to how your name was chosen. So going back to what we talked about at the beginning of our story, thinking about point of view. In our story, our main character, her beliefs, her values, and her attitude was shaped by her experiences and what she had in Korea and her experiences with her grandmother. As the story goes on, you notice that her beliefs and what she values changes over time in a good way. So she believes that maybe her name isn't as important or as cool as some of the other American names, but as the story goes on, she realizes that her name has value and importance that's meaningful to her. And in turn, her classmate Joey, he ends up choosing a Korean name to share with her. And you notice that her point of view has changed as well as his point of view has changed through their experiences in the story. So when you're reading books with classmates or with your class or during independent reading time, make sure that you're thinking about what is the character's point of view, what do they believe, what do they value, what are their experiences, and how does that shape maybe the attitude about an event or other things in the story. So glad that you came to read with me again today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, KCPS.